If you own a construction contracting business and your revenue is growing, but you're taking home the same paycheck, this video is perfect for you to watch. My name is Scott Peper. I'm the CEO and founder of Mobilization Funding, and for the last 10.5 years, we've been helping businesses look at their cash flow differently, find ways to execute projects in a manner that they can work efficiently, have the cash they need, get paid, and cash flow those jobs. All right, let's get into it. First, I want to ask you all a question. Are you a top or a bottom? Now get your mind out of the gutter. What I'm talking about is, do you focus on top line revenue when you look at your income statement, or you go down to the bottom and look and see what your profit is? Because if you're not looking at both, that's a problem. If you're not focused on both, that's also a problem. More often than not, what I see is too much of a focus on growing your business at a top line point. I want to be a $10 million company. My goal is to be 15 million. My goal is to be 25, 30, 50, $100 million business. All of that is great, and those goals are awesome. They're even better if you have built a system and a foundation that you know produces income. And what I'm talking about is, if you have a business that's at $1 million a year, and you know that if you funnel $1 million to that business, that 10, 15, 20%, whatever your profit margin is, falls to the bottom line. And you've structured it now to where every single dollar that comes in is going to flow through that same waterfall and produce the same profit. Then I would tell you, you now have a great system to build a business on top of. Because if you do grow a business from 1 million to 5 to 10, through a process like that, where you nailed it, and you know as $1 million comes in, that same exact amount falls to profit, and as 2 million comes in, same percentage, 3 million, same percentage, and so forth, you are now not having the problem that I just mentioned. You are not focused on top line revenue, but taking home the same paycheck. You actually are focused on top line revenue and profitability, and not only are you taking home a different paycheck, but you're also taking home what's called distribution checks, which we're all looking for. Let's dive a little deeper into revenue and profit. I want to analyze that for you all. Revenue is the amount of cash you collect from the goods or services that you produce. You deliver products to customers, they pay you. You deliver services to customers, they pay you. You deliver a combination, they pay you. Those are your revenues. What you invoice your customers and what they pay you, that's the revenue. It's vastly different than what your profit is, though. And it's vastly different than your gross margin, net margin, etc. All those fancy finance words that are out there. So I want to break those down really quickly. Whatever your cost of goods sold is, you subtract that from your revenue, and that's your gross margin. What does that look like in construction? Well, that's going to be your materials. That's going to be your labor, any type of service equipment that you needed to utilize for those projects. Anything that's project-related expense would be a cost of goods sold to you. That's your gross margin. Then you're going to go through all of your overhead expenses. Those are your debt service payments, equipment payments, employees that are not working on the job. They might be working for the job, with the job, but they're in the office. Those are your administrative employees. Those are salaries for executives that aren't on the job. That number then is reduced from your gross margin and becomes your net margin. That is ultimately what we're talking about from a net profit perspective on the business. Now, when you're growing, you have to invest in employees. You have to have a certain amount of people in a business in order to produce the outcome you're looking for. And you can grow your revenue with that same amount of people. And what ends up happening is you can gain some efficiencies and become more and more profitable. Your gross margin might not change, because depending on your purchasing power and the cost of material and your labor cost, but your overhead start to become pretty fixed based on the amount of revenue you're driving. So in other words, what do I mean by that? Well, at a $5 million business, may have 6 to 10 employees internally, probably do 7, 8, 9, $10 million worth of business by not having to add an entire other 6 or 8 employees. You might be only having 1 or 2. It's those efficiencies is what I'm talking about. Too often, businesses are focused on growing the top line, and they're not even thinking about the bottom line, or they're assuming that the bid sheets they turn in on projects is what their profit is. Too often than not, companies are focused on the top line growth, and they're not even considering what their profit is at all, or they don't know because maybe they're not managing their financials on a monthly or quarterly basis. They're just looking at their taxes at the end of the year, or they're managing cash in their bank account. That's a problem. Going back to what I started with, having the right financial infrastructure up front, meaning that foundation. You put $1 million in, you know it's going to produce a certain amount of result as it trickles through the waterfall, and you're going to end up with net profit. Once you focus on that system and you scale it, now you can start to focus on top line revenue to leverage the foundation that you built. But it has to work in those steps. You have to build a foundation for your business that you know produces a financial outcome that you can count on, that you can measure, and that you can look at on a very routine basis, so you know and can track that what you thought is happening is actually happening, and compare the two. And then you can focus on top line revenue using the system you have to bid, because you know that system produces the right margin. You can then execute additional work through the system in which you know that execution strategy, your project managers, your people, your labor, subcontract labor versus other, your supplier terms, how you buy, your purchasing power, all that produces an executable outcome that when you invoice your customer is going to flow through your waterfall and produce the net profit. Focusing on those two things together, but first the foundation, is so critical to be running a profitable construction business, as well as one that you can manage, hold on to, grow, and cash flow. Because we all know if you focus on top line revenue without having the right infrastructure and a focus and strategy for cash flow, you're going to suffer. And it's going to be a hard, painful road. And we're all trying to avoid that. So let's discuss some cash flow strategies. Well, first, we've talked about this many times, but you need to have the right financial infrastructure for your business. We discussed that. How money flows in, how money flows out, when you're going to recognize revenue, how you're going to recognize expenses. All those things are critical. So you get with your accounting team. Find a construction accountant. I cannot reiterate this enough times. Construction accountant. You need an accounting firm that is construction focused so you can leverage all their experience. It's great to have a family member that's a CPA. It's even better to support them, to hire them. If you're going to pay an accountant, might as well pay one of your family members or friends. I get it, no doubt. But if they don't have construction accounting experience, they can't help you yet. Most beneficial way to use them is either have them go work for a construction accounting firm, get the experience, and then hire them, or use them more as a controller. Despite the fact they got their CPA and all that stuff, use them as a controller, give them a pathway to becoming a CFO, but hire a construction accounting firm that they can help you consult with your CPA client or CPA family member or friend, so you guys can together build that infrastructure and then they can execute it. That is a great way to use both resources if you must. If not, make sure either way though, construction accounting firm. The next step is you have to understand your cash flow by project. It's easy to understand how money moves in and out of the business by looking in your checking account and kind of getting an anecdotal feel. But we all know that's not a real good strategy, because even though you have that feel, it's usually a negative one. And once you have that negative feeling or you don't have enough cash, it's very difficult to go try to figure out where and why and how. So a 13-week cash flow, there's lots of them out there. This is where your construction accounting firm can help you guide this to play with this sheet, to create this sheet for your business. But if you do nothing else and you manage the cash flow by project, it will very much help you as it flows into the business to be able to make sure you have enough cash on each job and each project to execute it. We have a great project cash flow tool that's free. You can use ours, you can use anyone's, it doesn't matter, but ours is a great tool. If you want to use it for free, you can download it on our website. You can also go to the resource page, cash flow tool, and use it there. We'll create it for you and email it to you. And anyone on our team is happy to help walk through a project cash flow with you if you need to. You don't need to take out a loan with us. It's a service that we're happy to provide to you, and we give that tool away for free. But most importantly, use some kind of cash flow tool by project, and from there you can start to build out exactly what you're going to do on a project by project basis. You're going to understand those numbers. This is part of building that financial foundation that we're talking about that you can now grow your business on, where you can get to the point to focus on top line revenue because you're going to have the right reproducible outcome on the bottom line. Story time. We had a client who was very focused on top line business. They had had a huge business prior, doing all kinds of low voltage and other electrical work. They grew that business. They were adding customer after customer, customer after customer. They were renting truck. They were buying person. They put even amazing spreadsheets together. And you know what the problem was? Their spreadsheets were wrong. Their costs were wrong. Even though they looked pretty and they looked amazing. And by the way, we got fooled too with that. Early on, we didn't know what exactly to look for. When I say early on, I'm talking 6, 7, 8 years ago. We looked at all those tools. We could tell they had a great command of their numbers, and they did. And matter of fact, if those numbers were accurate, and if they got paid on time, and if all the assumptions they made, those sheets would have looked awesome. But the problem was their assumptions they made were helpful to make the sheet look good, but they weren't reality. So you have to be honest on that. So what happened with that customer? They grew too fast. They took on the wrong forms of debt. And by the time they came to us, we were able to help them a little bit with one particular project, but we couldn't help them overall. And we actually shouldn't have got involved. And what ended up happening is the big project that we tried to help them on turned into a disaster, and that was the house of cards. It brought the entire company down, and it ended with that company being in bankruptcy. And it ended with the two owners filing personal bankruptcy. And it's a real sad story because the truth is they were good operators, they were good business people, but they were not honest with themselves with regard to their numbers and the assumptions. So despite having what were tools available to them, and they were using those tools, and even the previous success they had, they didn't listen to advice, and they were only focused on growing. And this is the exact reason I'm telling this story, because despite having what I would call a significantly high level of financial sophistication, their lack of focus on all aspects that we've already covered really brought them down. And that's what it was. And I don't want to see that happen to you. So develop an action plan. Start out by figuring out what your numbers are. Make sure you have a foundation in your business that's going to produce an outcome that you can count on. Money comes in and it produces an equal amount of profit. As you add more revenue, those same percentages as it flows through the waterfall of your business are obtained. You want to make sure that that's happening and you nail that system down and the people and the support functions around it, because as you grow that top line, you want to make sure that you're going to gain efficiencies, but also you can maintain your profitability or increase it. It's critical to know that. That's step one. Step two, make sure you use a construction accounting firm to do that with you. You don't have to figure this out on your own. You can watch YouTube videos, you can check out this video, but at the end of the day, hire a construction accountant. You need to get your taxes done anyway, and just investing those dollars are going to give you so much peace of mind and help you guide. There's nothing better than having a guide or having a recipe when you're trying to make something. This is the recipe. The construction accountant is the recipe for your success. Here's how you're going to do these things in the best possible manner so that you can be successful. That's what you're trying to do. Next, incorporate the cash flow tools. Make sure at a minimum you know exactly what your cash flow is going to be on each project, what your cash needs are, how the money is going to flow into that project and out of that project, so that you can actually realize the profit that you have estimated in your bid sheet. If you're anticipating making that kind of profit that you bid the job at, you want to make sure that you perform and execute it. And having a cash flow tool and understanding your cash flow by project is going to help you do that. And last, put this information together. Go back and watch it from the beginning. Follow these simple steps so that you can avoid the disaster that occurs when you try to grow your business from a top line perspective without paying attention to anything on the bottom. You have to work both angles. You have to focus on top line and bottom line, and making sure that the efficiencies that are gained from putting money on the top of the business flows through your waterfall and lands at the bottom. That's the only way to make it happen. I hope this video helped you. If it did, please click subscribe on our channel, follow us on LinkedIn, share this with your friends and family, and most of all, I hope you guys have a great day. God bless you.